Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Recently I purchased a complete set of the great books, and that is the Great Books of the Western World, put out by Britannica. And this here is volume 1, The Great Conversation. So you may be asking, what are the great books? The great books are the very best books that contain the big ideas that undergird our existence as human beings, our lives in community or through politics. It covers ideas about the soul, ideas about eternity and God, ideas about economics and history and imaginative literature. The very best books that do all of those things are the great books. Now, though the set that I purchased has 54 volumes, the editors of the Great Books series are not saying by any stretch these are the only great books that we have, but these are ones that you must have in order to have a liberal arts education. And what do we mean by that? We mean an education that covers math, science, and philosophy, that covers theology and drama, and some of the greatest novels that have ever been written. And so with a liberal arts education, you're becoming well-rounded in those ideas. You can communicate through those ideas by studying the great books. You can understand your society that you live in. You can better understand the history of your own nation and how to best address the problems that humans in every era have had to face and how to face them in your era where you live. A liberal education is absolutely vital to the existence of the United States and every other Western nation. So without further ado, this great conversation, this is volume 1. Every one of the books, when you open it, these right on the cover, it has what all the 54 volumes cover. So this is the first edition. It was first released in 1952. I don't believe that my set was actually printed in 1952. There are hints that the last owner had purchased it at least as early as 1971. He left a lot of receipts and his business card as bookmarks in the other volumes. But anyway, the 1952 edition has these 54 volumes, and we cover from Homer, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes. We go right through all the ancient authors into medieval through Thomas Aquinas. We get to Dante, Chaucer, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Rabelais, Shakespeare. And yet there are 2 volumes for Shakespeare, just as there are 2 volumes for Aristotle. There are a lot of big ideas from those authors. I have Cervantes, Francis Bacon. We have Locke, Berkeley, Hume. We have Adam Smith. I just mentioned economics. That's a vital one to have. We have Gibbon. Of course, he's famous for The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, and that's such a big work that it covers 2 volumes here as well. And we come down through Hegel, Goethe, Melville, Darwin, Marx and Engels, and all the way down to Freud. And it's not saying that that you're going to agree with everything that all of these authors say, but these authors wrestle with ideas that you need to think about. I don't anticipate agreeing with Freud on anything, but it doesn't mean I can't read Freud, because his ideas do have impact on where we are today. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with Karl Marx, but we need to understand Marx because his ideas have impacts on where we are today. The same with Machiavelli. I don't anticipate agreeing with Machiavelli. But anyway, so the great conversation. What you might be wondering, what even is the great conversation. The great conversation is how books talk to each other. So if there are some very big ideas about liberty, freedom, about public service, the books that cover these ideas, in a manner of speaking, talk to each other. You have, suppose you have Homer. He has the Iliad and the Odyssey. Well, then writers after that tend to refer back to what they've already read. They read Homer. They write about some of the same ideas that Homer wrote about. They even reference Homer directly or indirectly. And this goes on and on. The next author refers to the previous authors, and so on and so forth. So in this sense, the books talk to each other. They build upon each other. They critique each other. They teach you how to read each other. And that is pretty awesome. So that's the defining characteristic of Western society, that our books talk to each other. They have this ongoing conversation. And that's what the great conversation is all about. So that tradition of the West, that's that defining characteristic, that great conversation. And we have here the goal toward which Western society moves is the civilization of the dialogue. The spirit of Western civilization is the spirit of inquiry. Its dominant element is the logos. Nothing is to remain undiscussed. Everybody is to speak his mind. No proposition is to be left unexamined. And that's a really powerful idea, isn't it? We can talk about all these ideas, and we can talk about them intelligently. We can talk about them without going into civil war with each other. We should be able to talk about these things. And that's what this is trying to get at. But in America, unfortunately, this liberal arts education through the great books has not happened in your lifetime. It has not happened in my lifetime. It had stopped in the lifetime of the editors of these books. So this project was started to be put together in the 1940s. Liberal arts education had already disappeared then. And they had said if you are less than 90 years old, and that's in 1952, reading this, there's no way you had a liberal arts education. And you need this. You need to have a liberal arts education. Every American does. And they actually suggest, no, they don't suggest, they say it plainly, it's unpatriotic not to have that. That's a challenging proposition, is it not? We owe it to ourselves as American citizens, or if you're a Canadian watching this, you owe it to yourself as a Canadian. Or suppose you are English, you owe it to yourself as an Englishman to have this education. Or, you're Swedish, you're German, you're French, you owe it to yourself as a citizen of your nation to have a liberal arts education through the great books. This is very important. And I as I read this essay, so this introductory essay has 10 parts. And the editor-in-chief, Robert Maynard Hutchins, he makes the case that you really do need to have a liberal education through the great books. Otherwise, you're not equipped to be a citizen who can make informed decisions at the ballot box, or to even understand what our problems are, to be able to articulate them. How much more so our elected officials? Suppose you are running for this local school board. You need to be educated in the great books. And so since you never had this education when you were in formal schooling, you must have this education for the rest of your life, from now until you pass, or until Christ returns. You must have this education. It takes years. Once you've read the great books, read them again, and then read them again, and then read them again, is the urging of not only Hutchins, but also one of the other editors, Mortimer Adler, whose book, How to Read a Book, I recently reviewed. These are very important things. And so I learned about the great books only just a year ago. And that was mostly through the channel Great Books, Big Ideas. Great fellow there named Jim. I'm going to link his channel down in the description and in the pinned comment. But Jim has talked about these books for a long time, and he started reading them when he was a teenager. And these books are just so important. He hasn't stopped reading them. And I don't think any of us should stop reading them. I absolutely agree. I've read some of them already before I even knew about the great books. I became much more interested in the classics recently. It's almost 2 years ago now that someone said something theologically that kind of, I felt, ignored the cultural background of the New Testament. And so I asked the question broadly, who even were the Romans? Because the theological question had to do with Paul's epistle to the Romans. I asked, who were the Romans? And to answer that question, I felt that I needed to read Roman literature. And so I read Virgil, I read Ovid, I read Horace, I went and read Livy's History of Rome, the only 35 volumes left existing of the, I think, 142 volume set. There's only 35 left. I read those. Gosh, Livy is a tremendous writer. And Livy's not even part of this set. But like I said, the Great Books set is not the only great books that there are. And then I set about to looking for more to read beyond just ancient Roman literature, but I've also started reading some ancient Greek literature as well. I've read a fair chunk of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and I've read the Iliad and the Odyssey within the last year. And they do have big ideas, and these books do talk to each other, and the things that we need to think about. And so I'm not just reading syntopically to understand who the Romans are, but I'm also beginning to get an understanding of who we are as a society. Just beginning, right? This is an education that's going to take me a while. I'm staring 50 in the face here. But this is exciting. This is a very exciting journey. I look forward to it. As I read great books, whether through these volumes or through other volumes, I will go through them with you and talk about them on this channel. I do look forward to that. And I hope to see you all in future videos. I think that's probably enough to wet your whistle for now. All right, everybody, have a great day.